Hello, how are you?
I am doing wonderful today. So good to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm so happy. Like the timing could not be better
Yes.
to have you gracing us. I'm just so excited. Guess what? Yes, look. Come on, booking this tab. I
Yes.
want to thank you so much, Miss Deborah, for joining us. Juniper Fry,
Absolute
all
pleasure.
from
Absolute
Virginia.
pleasure.
Yes. Want to welcome you and all of our listening audience, near and far. Whether it's live or on demand, we thank you. We celebrate you for giving us your ear and your heart for this few moments. Want to welcome you to Conversations in the Nick of Time. I am your host, Nikki Roach. Show is powered by Sparkling Pathway to Careers and KSCL Jubilee 690 AM. We are just delighted to bring you this virtual global classroom, is what I consider it. And we explore these ideas of leadership excellence and leadership accidents. This topic could not come at a greater time of need. I think it is always the case, but because we are living in such unprecedented times and it is compacted with a number of different crises and concerns and loss, and I could go on and on. And we have with us grief consulting and counselor Deborah Frye, all the way from Virginia. How are you?
I am doing very well.
Good. I'm gonna.
So glad to be here with you today.
I know we're gonna jump right in. Let me give just a little background um, about all your greatness, but it's
Mm.
abbreviated, so just some of your greatness. Deborah Fry is a longtime grief specialist. She's worked with countless families and organizations through the grief process to gain understanding, new hope, and self awareness. She is the business owner of Grief Care Consulting LLC and the author of two books, Grieving Under Grace and What About Me? I'm Sad Too, which is a children's grief activity book. She is an ambassador for the When Women Talk organization and a grief recovery method specialist through the Grief Recovery Institute. And she has taken additional certificate courses, Yale University, Johns Hopkins University, and Cognitive Behavior Institute. And we have her with us now. Why is this idea of grief so important to you?
Well, it's important to me because it is something that I myself had to work through.
Okay.
And it became a passion to me as I was working through my own grief. And I found that I couldn't get away from it because of the grieves and things, the grievances and things that I've had in my life. Surely there were tons and tons of other people that have them as well. And also in my job, when I used to work at a church, I was the bereavement coordinator. So I had a good feel of all of the different kinds of griefs that people were going through. And it just grew into a purpose and a passion for me. So I decided to from behind the shadows and share what I have learned personally, what I have experienced personally. And I thought, what a good tool to be able to share with people because they're able to identify with a real life person, real life, different kinds of griefs, and how to overcome them as well. And the things that I use to get through the grief also.
Okay. And so I know you mentioned just a moment ago that you were assigned to the grief ministry at a
Mhm.
church. What was it about you at that time that caused that leadership to tap you on the shoulder?
Well, I truly believe that God has given me a beautiful portion of compassion for people, empathy for people, to where I put myself in their shoes and I can identify. And you know, it's just God. I can't. There's nothing super special about me. That it is just God that infills me. What He has put in me. And he kind of trained me throughout my 22 plus years of doing this, really, really, until I decided to go and get some actual training for myself.
Wow.
So uh, it was God.
And so okay, so you had all this kind of within. It was identified. You went and then sought out training,
Right.
undergird you and establish you, give you some credentials.
Right. And it was many, many years after I was doing this, being the liaison between family and funeral homes, family and cemeteries, family and florists, family and caterers. And so it's been many, many years that, I say, why don't I put this to some good use? And I felt inadequate even after 15 years of doing this. I felt inadequate because I had not had the actual training of being a grief recovery method specialist, going and get extra certification courses. And so I didn't put myself out there as many, many people told me that I should. So I wanted to get some background paper, because a lot of times people want to see the paper before they will even listen to you. And especially in this important field of grief, because you're tapping into people's family members, you're tapping into their spirits, you're tapping into trying to help them through this journey.
Yeah, and that is such a vulnerable time of anybody's life. And
Absolutely.
speaking of a vulnerable time, we talk about grief.
Yeah.
And honestly, when we say grief, we associate one thing with grief.
That's right. That's a casket,
And
that's a funeral, that's somebody dying. And
I, I
and
love,
that is so important, and that is such a big piece of grief. So I don't push that to the side, but we grieve about so many different things. And that is what I was pulled to write about, the different kinds of griefs that people don't. We know how to tuck that stuff up, put on that lipstick, and out the door we go.
come on.
And and we don't even think about it. We just do it.
And we don't even consider, and this is what I love about your book, Grieving Under Grace. God's reachable anointing covers everyone.
Hmm.
And in the just the table of contents gives clarity to many of us who think like, oh, it's, yeah, I've been there, done that when it comes to grief, but we are right now in such a crisis in the world. When we
Hmm.
talk about we're dealing with a pandemic, we're dealing with social injustice, we're dealing with political unrest, just all kinds of
All
things
kinds
in
of
this
things. Yeah.
season. And while yes, I've even been impacted by too much death over the last few months because of our current pandemic with COVID. However, you list grieving over terminal illness, over the unexpected loss of a loved one, over the past, self shame, broken relationships, hardships, and church hurt.
Yes.
We don't think about those categories.
Oh yeah. We don't think
About
about
grief.
them at all.
Yeah. So I love this. So how do you define grief?
Deep sadness.
Deep.
Grief is deep sadness. And a lot of times we make it a really a big thing, but to simply identify grief, it is deep sadness. It is a change in your norm. It is something that is uncomfortable. It is something that um you don't know even how to deal with it. Grief is one of those emotions you don't know what to do until it happens to you. Really, you can assume what you would do. If my mom died, I would probably do this. If I got a divorce, I would probably do this. But you don't know until grief comes to your door. You don't know how you're going to handle it until it comes to your door.
Yeah, and then when you say come to your door,
Mhm.
and then now reversing our thought pattern regarding
Yes.
grief,
Grief will find you. Grief will find you.
especially with what you just defined, even in your book, in
Yeah.
regards to this is everybody at any
Everybody. Everybody. No religion, no ethnicity, no color, no nothing. We are all grieving. The world is grieving at large right now. We
Wow.
don't know each other, but we are all grieving, and we can all identify with one another with pandemic fatigue. We can all identify with somebody that your loved one has been touched with pandemic, whether in your home or out of your home. We have friends that are battling in the hospital now because of the pandemic. We have friends that have lost jobs because of the pandemic. Um, it is, and then we have friends that are going through their own personal mental health because of this pandemic. So it has touched quite a few things, and death is not just the only thing.
Yeah. And I love in the book, chapter 2, page 18, you write, what do we do when option one is gone? You can't pray the situation away. You can't wish the situation away. You can't cover it up, and you can't act like you don't see it, feel it, or know about it. It's looking you square in the face. Again, what do you do when you can't change a thing about this unexpected grief?
Yeah.
Explore that for us just a little bit.
Unexpected grief, I call it a gut punch.
Okay.
It's a slap that comes from nowhere. It stuns you. Like, what just happened? You know, and you have got to um, get yourself together from that kind of unexpected grief. Unexpected grief could be um, a tragic death, which I've had. Unexpected grief can be a loved one being incarcerated, which I've had. Unexpected grief can be hardships when your money is funny and you're upside down and trying to get yourself back together in good standing with bill collectors and things like that. So unexpected grief is a friend that you thought was your best friend, and they were sidebarring you with their new so-called best friend. So unexpected griefs, I can go on and on and on about those things, and we are all going to experience them probably from time to time, or we know people that have experienced them.
Chapter 7, page 62. And I'm pulling out some ones that are just very unique because I think we've not mastered, but we understand the other known side of grief.
Sure.
But it's grieving over hardship. A lot of time, due to pride, embarrassment, or shame, we tend to keep our hardship secrets to ourselves, conditioning our minds to think we are the only ones going through and enduring this type of super special hardship. It's
Mhm.
easy to shut yourself in and close out the help that is right in front of you.
Yeah.
These can stem from self inflicted hardships.
Yeah.
Explain that for us.
Yeah. Self-inflicted
Inflicted.
hardships. I knew I should have paid that bill. Why am I crying? Because my stuff is cut off now. Or um, self-inflicted hardships. I know that I should have been a better mother, but now my children are emulating what I did in their younger years. So those things there, being our own worst enemy is a lot of times what we do. We're in whatever predicament we're in most of the time because of our own decisions,
Uh-oh.
because because of our own decisions. And I raised both my hands, and I raised a foot too if I could.
Yeah.
So we're in our own predicaments a lot of times because of our own predicament, our own decisions. And it is just the grace of God that we get out of them. We get a way of escape. We get discernment. We get that gut feeling that we know we shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't be this way. We get that unction to stop us in our tracks. And it is our intentional will to do right or do wrong. So, and if you're somebody that just did wrong over and over and over again, when you wake up tomorrow, in the next hour, you can start doing right. In the next minute, you can start doing right. So we always have that space of grace to do better, to be better.
And as we try to do better, be better, see better, show up better, there's a process that we
Yes, it is.
there's a
Yes, it
process.
is.
And again, this is not just about grief regarding death.
Yes. And and these things are easy, and these things are easier said than done. Of course, we can say them over and over again, but until we be intentional about doing whatever we need to do. Be intentional about reading the book to get through whatever journey I'm on. Be intentional about going to ask a girlfriend for forgiveness. Being intentional about being a better wife or being a better friend or being a better person. You have to have intent to do right. You just have to.
So what would you say is one, your years of experience? You have so much, whether it's ch- church facing, corporate facing, um, just external facing when it comes to secular world and in the marketplace. What's a myth that you hear, like the one that rises to the top in regards to grief?
Um, Nobody knows how I'm feeling, or uh, uh, um, I'm a lot of times, like I said, the person that's grieving think they're the only one that have had this done, or they're the only one on this journey. I don't have anybody that I can talk to. That's another one. And I tell them, well, I raised my hand for you to talk to me, so you can take that excuse away. But we give ourselves excuses and reasons not to a lot of times feel the pain that you have to feel in grief, having to be on the journey that you have to be in grief, having to be intentional about uh, doing better while you're in grief. You can have the best counselor, the best friend, the best person that can lead you to the water. But if you don't drink and refresh yourself, you're going to stay half empty. You're going to stay half empty.
So do you see that, or what I'm hearing is almost like that we're putting a double burden on ourselves, because not only are we coming to a situation or we're showing up with this level of grief, whether it's
Yeah,
self-inflicted or it is something that we had no control over and it was some life just happened,
sure.
then now we are trying to suppress it, trying to um, ignore it.
Yeah.
So now we have this double burden of
Yeah.
grief.
It's easier to be woe is me than to be courageous. It's easier to be woe is me than to um, escape into the grief, to find some peace. And I tell people all the time, whatever you're grieving, you can always find some peace to kind of help you along the way. You have to acknowledge it, and a lot of times you don't want to acknowledge the bad feeling, the deep sadness, because it is just something that we don't like going through, don't want to go through. Um, you have to embrace it. Those things that you love the most, you hold dear to you, and that loved one that passed, they're gone, but you still have to find a way to hold them dear to you. That friend that you and her may be on the outs, you still have to find a balance to still um, decide whether you're going to keep that friendship or you're going to grow from that friendship and still be able to um, go on your way. So you got to find some peace. You have to find some peace in the midst of your grief.
And so, speaking of finding peace, the place that I want to take us now to a place that is a new phenomenon.
Yeah,
I'm sure, even in your practice, this whole influence and intrusion of social media
yeah,
when it comes to grief, we're putting information out here, but on one end, I think it's a great tool to let people know, and they can share their condolences and extend their tokens of love and just love.
yeah,
However, on the other side, it can also stir the pot for you. Um,
Correct.
or it could cause us to be, to me, paralyzed in a state of grief, in the stages of grief. But also it impacts people who are not even involved with
Correct.
grief. So what is it with this social media? Like, how are you tackling that in your work?
Well, like you said, social media is a phenomenon right now. Um, you can look your best from waist up. I can be the best right now. I can have on whatever I want on the bottom, and you never know. So, and then
That is
people,
such a great example. That's how we're showing up, broken. Just
yes, yes.
look,
You
but
know,
we
and I said the other day, and I had a broken heart as my graphic, and but it was a beautiful heart. One, the heart at the top was beautiful, the one at the bottom was still beautiful, but it was broken. And it was my daughter's graphic, because she bakes, and the heart that was open had some cake on the plate. And I said, even though things look pretty, does not mean that they are not broken. And I said, stop for a moment to hear the real answer.
mm,
And a lot of times social media can let us see the fluffy, the pretty pictures, and the life that looks like it's wonderful. And that person, when they go home, they're the loneliest person you would ever want to see. And if you knew how lonely they were, you would have so much compassion for them. So you have to have a balance with social media. If you are a person that is easily influenced,
and
you need to limit yourself on social media, because you're going to be in a la la land that is not real. It's just
but,
not real.
but you have to
You
be
know,
honest with yourself about
you have
that.
to be
And
honest with yourself. You know, I find with social media, um, I do like to scan like everybody else, but my purpose on social media is to put something positive, which most mornings I do something positive, a nugget of going on, or something like that. So if you're going to be on social media, be about that, put something that's positive that people can feed off of, that they can get encouraged from. And of course, you're going to share your life as to what things are going, what things are not going right. But there's a limit to that as well. And then on social media, get plugged up with people that can elevate you, people that can take you to places where you just haven't gone yet, people that can help you in whatever your need is. So use social media as a positive tool as well. So you just don't have to be on there. And of course, a lot of us are on there 12 midnight scrolling. Hello. you know, so, but make sure that it's something of purpose, it's something reasonable that you're doing while you're up there, instead of just peeking and um stalking
Yeah, and
people
getting swallowed in, you
and
know.
getting swaddled in. And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
It's easy
Oh,
to
yeah.
do, and it's easy to lose your identity in this social media world as well. So you need to know who you are.
And you're causing yourself uh, that self-inflicted grief,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
that's new learning for me.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
reading this book because to think about it in that way, back to you said choices and decisions that
Yeah.
I'm making that's contributing to my deep sadness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it can sometimes be like you need to unplug. Like there may be someone you hang around that you need to unplug from
yeah,
for a while or distance permanently.
exactly.
Like, and you bring, social media. I have been and continue to be on a schedule. Like Wednesday is really the day I'm on social media. If
Hmm.
you notice my pattern, I am on there. I'll respond, I'll reply quicker or faster um, on Wednesdays. Tuesday, I'm on there too. Um,
Hmm.
but Wednesday is usually my day I'm poking around, but I give myself a time frame.
Right. In my course that I took at Yale University, the science of well-being,
Mhm. Oh,
the science says that with social, and we did social media. With social media, you need to give yourself a time, like you're doing, Nikki. You need to give yourself a purpose to be there. You need to make sure that you're not getting swallowed into that all of that fluff that most of us put up there, and the pretty pictures and all of that stuff to make you feel bad about yourself because this person is far ahead of
Mhm.
where you are, or this
And
person
we're
has
still
gone
filling
on
in
to,
blanks.
you
We don't
know,
know it to be true though. That's the
yes, right. That's right. And I didn't get as many likes on my post as she got on her post. So the science of well-built being, it taught me how to go back and re establish even better boundaries and tighter boundaries so that I can live better.
okay. Better.
Yeah.
Now we're shifting to grief process
Hmm.
so that we can get better when we
Yes.
find ourselves in these spaces. The
Yes.
first one, and I think there's five. Is it five or do you do the four?
What?
Um, the steps to grief, the phases of grief.
Well, the phases of grief, uh, and that was because of death and dying. So those stages were denial, depression,
Yeah.
anger, bargaining, um,
Yeah.
acceptance,
Yeah.
and but we have found that there are far more processes that we go through in dealing with grief. None of them come in order. None of them um, none of them come in order. None of them will stay with you forever. And some of them have time frames. So you can be feeling wonderful at one moment, and you can walk up past. It's Valentine's Day coming up soon. You could be outside, seeing the lovebirds out there, being single, and you had no intention to get angry once you saw that in front of your face. But you rose up in anger because you feel lonely. You
So
feel like, why don't I have somebody? Or whatever. You can make it a self inflicted thing on you. So those stages, those emotions come whenever they want to come. And you have to learn how to cope with them when they come. Because
and
grief is something that it is never ending, and it is something that is going to happen on a regular basis.
I love the fact that you say it's never ending
It's
and
never ending.
they don't happen in phases because we do. I think some of some of us, when you see or have taken some classes or something in your reading, you've explored the five phases of grief. You just kind of like think you're gonna, oh, am I here? Am I here? Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm almost at the end, and so we try to like time it out. Um, I want to go through and just like unpack the definition of each one of those because there's one that I think we don't really understand the meaning and the process
Hmm.
behind it. But also, I want to acknowledge this fact of triggers that you're talking about. The trigger.
Yes.
So I was out with friends, um, some sister friends, and we were out having a great time at a restaurant in St. Louis, Missouri. And what's interesting, we're sitting there, we're talking, we just kikiing and all that, having a blast. And I happened to look over to my right.
Hmm.
And to my right was a little girl who obviously must have been in her princess Halloween costume because it was a
Hmm.
princess outfit. She had the whole thing on. And she was with her dad. I guess it was her dad. And they were sharing a drink. And she was just laughing. And she was like almost over the table because she's like trying to drink out the straw of this drink. And so I looked and I stared and I had to excuse myself because I started crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
That
knowing. And it was because
came from
every
nowhere.
nowhere, every Thursday for
Mhm.
years, my father and I have done a father-daughter date.
Amazing.
And it's been 5 years
Yeah.
since he has transitioned. And but you don't need, and that's what, so I wouldn't, before that experience, I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, grieving can go on and on and on. Yeah, okay.
Hmm.
But I now have experienced like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
I'm good,
Yeah.
but I still got triggered.
So what with that being such a phenomenal moment on a weekly basis, what do you do now to bring that joy back to yourself and to hold him close? What do
Mm.
you do?
I actually, so I do certain things. I did for a while go out, but I will even spend time just with my mom on those
Yeah.
moments. We'll
Hmm.
celebrate him. We even did a birthday dinner for him
Awesome.
recently. um, yeah, and we'll just do different. And so we have done a number of things that he loved to do that
Hmm.
were outside of work, because he was very much into like nature, and so we have done a number of things to the house, around the house. We stay in this amazing space that allows us to enjoy nature,
That's beautiful.
and so we continue to do that, and we
Yeah.
nurture the things that he started.
Yeah. Making new beginnings,
Yeah.
new
Oh,
beginnings, new savory moments. He will live forever, ever, ever, ever. And that is the way of coping. That is self-coping. That is doing something that will bring you some grief giggles, that will bring you some sweet, tender feelings about dad, you know. So and that's why I tell people that there's always good in grief, because we just have to find it, because it's always there, and we in our coping skills that will help us to work towards the garden and the dinner for dad, and those type of things that become tradition,
yeah.
that
And I
become
like the fact,
tradition.
I like when you said, the grief giggles. That's
Sure.
who would think that's like an oxymoron, like giggles
Yes.
and grief together. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But I love how you even, go into, and we'll go a little deeper into like things to do
Yeah.
to kind of get past that. But denial, isolation, that is when we first learn of something, right?
Yes.
Of a
And here again, it depends on the person.
Okay.
You can go in total denial.
Okay.
I can go into a total frenzy where I am overworking myself. I'm overdoing to keep myself busy. So it depends on the person.
Okay.
Totally
Anger.
depends.
So we have anger as a phase.
Sure.
And that is just what it is, right? We're angry
Yeah.
at the situation.
You're angry at the situation. If you have a faith life, you can get angry at God. You can get angry at the person that left. Yeah, and you're just mad. You're just mad. I mean, um when my baby sister died 4 months almost to the day after my mother, I in her sleep, I said, God, no, you didn't. No, I was angry. I couldn't believe it.
Mhm.
I could not believe it. That one minute we're talking to Jeanette, and then the next minute she died in her sleep. So I had to process through that. And in my book, I write about Deuteronomy 29:29. There are just some secrets that God will not tell us.
Mm.
We will never know the why. But that does not mean he is not almighty. He is not all knowing, and he is not going to get us through. So I had to get back on that bandwagon to help myself through that process. And so and that was the scripture that comes to me, Deuteronomy 29:29. You just don't know. And but what you do know, just do those things. Just do what you know to do.
And
And you're gonna get through.
yeah, and remembering he's still in control.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
The one, I think, the phase of grief, the stage of grief that I think a lot of times we get confused or we don't even realize we're in that space is
Mhm.
bargaining.
Bargaining.
And I've had a chance to talk to you in the past about these stages. This is the one though that I love when you drill in on this a little deeper to help us understand what that is.
Yeah. Bargaining is just one of those things where you're gambling. If I do this, okay, I'll get this, or if I give this, I'll do that, and you're trying to bargain even after the fact that it has already happened. The relationship has already gone bad, or the loved one has already gone on. So bargaining is one of those things where um you're kind of almost gambling with it, and it's already done.
Mhm.
So you almost it's almost a get nowhere kind of period for you.
Then we have depression.
Yeah.
We, that's the sadness that
Yeah.
sets in.
Yeah. and
Um,
and that's normal. Totally normal to have depression. What is not normal is when you check out, meaning when you check out of um the process of self-care, when you check out the process of I come by the house and the grass is up to my hip. When you there, you can see the signs um of that deep depression if you're close enough to the person. And then, I want to say that sometimes that person is so good with tucking that depression away that you have to really look to see the depression at times as well. So, yeah, that deep depression is something that it is always good to have a group of friends, family members that will challenge you. And sometimes that depression comes with a knockdown, drag out fight, because I'm just not going to let you stay in here like this. And you have to kind of bully your way in for the betterment of that person.
and this is when that professional support,
Correct.
professional help comes in because
Yes, if they need it, if they need that professional support, absolutely have it handy and ready for them. A lot of times when people are depressed, um, you can't come out of it without that professional help. You can't come out of it because of the time and the things that you do to help yourself cope with it. So it's not like we all get depressed, we all go and see the psychiatrist or the counselor. We just don't do that.
and there's nothing wrong with counseling.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with it. A lot of times, a lot of us have that element in our healthcare through our jobs.
For free.
Because
Well, you're paying for it, but you know what I'm saying.
you
The
don't you
EA.
don't want to raise your hand and go and do it because you think it's going to be a red flag for
Yeah,
people to use against you.
yeah.
So us as African American, we don't use that tool too often. Yeah.
Last stage is acceptance. No longer feeling angry. We finish with, we kind of make a truce with bargaining and we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, accepting the grief, and here again, that's not easy. Accepting the hardship, I have to start from the bottom and work my way back up to the top. So accepting whatever it is, because accepting it will put you on the other side of making it better for yourself. I did do wrong, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm going to do better. you know so I did go through a horrific divorce, but I'm not going to hold on to all of that anger that I had. I have got to forgive and let it go, and move on, and that is easier said than done too. It's a process.
And so now we have leaders in these various roles in the marketplace, leading a group of people during a pandemic, during a time of just repeat repetitive social
Hmm.
injustices, and we end up in a situation to where we're in the middle as leaders
Yes.
trying to lead people and bring them along, but yet we're in the middle of what the world has, the expectations of our corporations and companies, even as entrepreneurs, like the
Sure.
things are not the way they were. And people are saying like, oh, when we go back to normal, we, I think, are in for a new normal period, and it's time for us to adjust. But that's even grief that
That's
we're
right.
going to deal with. What
That's
is
right. That is grief. Our children not being able to go to school with
Yeah,
their friends. What about me? I'm sad too. That's a whole different emotion for our little tender hearts, right? Um, churches, everything is social media now, and churches have done a phenomenal job you have realized that the building, the brick and mortar, had no power, had nothing. It
Yes.
was just a decorated building. And we, as the walking church,
Church.
have all the power.
Yes.
So this pandemic, although it has brought some great hardships and griefs, it has also gave us good insight. It has also given us another chance to revamp, refocus, re-engage. And a lot of people have become better in this pandemic, believe it or not. I
Yes.
have become better in
Yes.
this pandemic, believe it or not. We have come out of the box to do things that we didn't think we can do. So um, it will not be the norm. The way that we do funerals now, um, a lot of people are saving a lot of money. A lot of people are seeing that we are able to honor our loved ones without having although we want them to be honored with all of the love, we're finding ways to um, Zoom in that love,
Yes.
have a Zoom funeral so that as many people that want to come can come to view. So there are so many things that the pandemic has stripped away, but there are so many things that um, we have found value
Yeah. And
in this pandemic.
that is so greatly worded, because as leaders and in our own rights, wherever you may find yourself, that alone helps with the whole grief process because no one has not lost.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you've given us tools in regards to how to rebound. And I know one word that comes to mind is grit. I didn't realize the grit. I felt stuck at one point
Hmm.
over these past few months, but I had to gird myself
That's
and
right.
remind
And
myself
talk yourself through, honey.
and find some folk to rally around and champion
Sure.
and to build, celebrate.
Hmm.
Hey, we get another chance.
Yes.
We're still here.
Yeah.
Um, then when we talk about also um, in that process, when I talk about surrounding yourself, how we say that, but how important really is that for us? Because we'll say, oh, let me find my tribe, my clique, my
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about.
For me, it is it has been life changing.
Mhm.
And I don't have a great batch of girlfriends around me. I've never had a whole lot of girlfriends that I share my personal space with, because um, for me it's been better. Now, some people love a whole lot of girlfriends. For me,
Yeah.
I have a select few people that I share my whole being with, and that I tell. And these are people that are able to help me in prayer, are able to help me financially, are able to help me in my business. So they're just not anybody. They're people that have purpose in my life, and I have purpose in their life. So it's very important to have that circle around you that's there when I'm tore out the frame. They're there when I'm up on my game. So they're there. So it is that unconditional love that they come with as well, that is needed, especially during this time when we can't see each other, we can't be with one another. So many friendships and marriages and families have kind of went to the wayside because of not finding a way to stay together, finding a way to stay together. Couples have broke up because they didn't have the base of love that undergirded them and friendship that was needed to survive when they didn't like each other. You cannot like your husband, your spouse, or whatever, but you gotta love them. You gotta love them. Sometimes Mike and I, we don't like each other, but we love each other.
It's a difference. It's a
It
difference.
makes a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
No.
And he'll tell you he never dislikes me, but you know But yeah, so you gotta have those that base to hold that stuff together.
And in the vein of that, being held together, let's explore some ways to support, whether it's a boss on a job, working with their teams, and now you're working with your teams virtually. So you're learning how to deal with this. That brings grief to a leader.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, how do I navigate this? But
yeah,
also just friends, like those friends, your spouse, because there are things like we don't all need the same thing. And depending on where we are in the grief process,
yeah,
the need that we may have.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe I wanted you to just to sit with me in silence today, but tomorrow,
I need a little something. Well, the first thing is self-care. You
okay,
got to take care of yourself.
okay.
If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't do anything else. If I have nothing to pour into you, what good am I in the circle? So self-care is a big one for me during this pandemic. And there are a lot of things that I had to pull back from. I had to cut loose from myself. I had to say, okay, it is what it is, and I had to go on with it. So you got to have some good self-care and some self-love about yourself, um, so that you can be refreshed, so that you can continue on. Because this thing called grief, it knows how to suck every bit of energy out of you. It can
And
suck every bit of energy out of you.
and you just mentioned letting go of some things.
Hmm.
And one thing I have learned, when you have to let go, we're not talking about bad stuff. We're talking about good stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that good stuff needs to be cut sometimes.
sure.
That's a lesson I had to learn.
Yeah.
Whether it be, I mean, fill in the blank, but it's like anything that's going good could still be not good for this season or good for where you're going.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one right there. You
Yeah.
can almost preach on that one.
But
Yeah,
I've learned it. I've learned, and but
yeah,
yet we try to hold on and
yeah.
not even realize, and that's actually initiating or igniting the fire to cause the grief to flare.
Trauma. Yeah, it'll cause trauma when, with anything. If you hold on to it too long, if you hold on to a pot that is getting on the stove, it's not hot when it starts out, but if you keep your hand on it, it's gonna burn you. You got to let it go at some point. And like you said, there are some things that we had to let go that are good things. It was good to us in the season. It was good for us in the season. Um, but where you're going, and where you have to go, you have to let some of those things go. And it doesn't mean that you have to um, have big disagreements in doing that. You can let things go and still be very respectful, very honorable, um, and it is what it is. A lot of times we want to make something big out of having to go or having to stop something. We want to make it bigger than what it is. It is what it is. Let's go.
So theguardian.com had an article right in alignment with what you're saying and sharing with us right now. 15 ways to support someone who is grieving, and one thing is never avoiding someone who you may know who's in bereavement. Like, don't just ignore them.
Yes.
It's okay to acknowledge.
Hmm.
There is similar bereavement stories that can really be helpful,
Yes.
um, but don't compare.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Don't stop someone from crying.
Yes. Those are cleansing tears. Those are, I say a lot of times that tears are something that come out of us when we just have no words. We
Oh,
have no words to express,
I love that.
but God bottles up every tear, and it is used for your benefit. So, yes, I used to tell my daughter all the time when she was in college and kind of going through, and when she would call me, and I would tell her, go get you a good crowd and call me back when you're done.
It is a
because
release.
because we have to, it's a release. We
Yeah.
have to cry. And in grief, you can, like you said, the example, The crying can come from anywhere, and you just have to let it go. You just got to let it go.
Um, Grief lasts way beyond the delivery of the news or
Mhm.
the action that has taken place.
Absolutely.
The shock of the first few days and weeks can make it hard to do everyday tasks.
Yes, it's a
So if
fog.
anyone's around,
It's a
you can
fog. Hmm.
okay. Um, you can offer to go with someone to do different tasks.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. A lot of times we ask, well, do you need anything? You know, a lot of times people don't know what they need. But if you know the person, if you know that on Thursday they normally go to the grocery store, take them to the grocery store. If you know, so you know, a lot of times people would tell you, well, no, I don't need a thing, but they do need something, you
so
know.
it's a matter
So
of being attentive.
yes, just you got to be paying attention. You got
Okay.
to be, because a lot of times we want the grief to go away too, because we don't want to feel bad. We want to get back to the giggles and laughs, and we want to get back on the other side too. But we have to process grief with people the way they process it and in their time frame. Grief cannot be rushed.
Okay. Um, say is this I thought this was unique about saving the flowers for 3 months after the bereavement when everyone else has fallen away and it seems everyone has forgotten or moved on.
Yeah.
I thought that was powerful.
Well, that is powerful depending on the person. Everybody don't like flowers. Everybody don't like flowers. I've had dealing with so many families
True
through the
enough.
grief process. I've had so many families say, we ain't doing all these flowers. We, you know, so it here again, it depends on the person. Now,
True.
if you know that I love certain flowers, of course, give the flowers.
And
Um,
some people love, chicken, chocolate.
exactly. You know,
Right.
so you got to find out what gives, what soothes them. You got to find out what soothes them.
And then also you mentioned this earlier about the grief giggles. It doesn't say I'm using your language, grief giggles,
Sure.
but it says don't be afraid to make the bereaved person laugh. Tell them about your day or silly things once you've checked in on them.
Sure.
The minutia of other people's lives can really be comforting and momentarily distracting to bring them around.
Absolutely. And you will find that you can get those grief giggles when you're talking about the person's loved one, and sharing stories that may have happened. A lot of times in Black funerals, we do that during the time of reflection when somebody get up and say something, and we fall out in the church laughing and giggling. And those are grief giggles. Nobody would think that you could put grief and giggles together, but we do it all the time. You know, unconsciously we do it, you know. So there are things that when my mother was going through her hospice process, she would do crazy stuff that I started recording her. Okay. And we would laugh until we almost cried because, you know, it was a funny moment for us during that time.
Mhm.
Um, so grief and giggles do go together. You just have to find the appropriate time to put them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
This has been just so helpful. And again,
Yeah.
the timing just perfect.
Yes.
Um, where is it that people can find out more about you and all that you're doing and to order their books?
Yeah, grieving under grace. Well, people can find me on Facebook, of course, by my name, Deborah Frye. I am on IG, Grief Care Consulting. On IG, Grief Care Consulting. Or is that Instagram? Yeah, that is Instagram, isn't it?
Mhm.
And so that where you can find me. Of course, my books are on Amazon.com. So you can find both books there, Grieving Under Grace and What About Me, I'm Sad Too, for our tender hearts. So make sure you're finding getting some books. You know, this is Love Month. So get some books to show love with those books, and also to pour into the tender hearts that you love as well.
Wonderful. So you have a platform, you're communicating to people all over the world. And we have just did a huge or a deep dive, quick deep dive into understanding and also unlearning what we were carrying when we talk about grief.
Sure.
Uh, I know a lot of unlearning I've had to do.
Hmm.
Um, but now with this new knowledge, and we have you, and this is our closeout where you give us some insight or some instructions in the nick of time. And so, what would you tell us um, as we are moving forward and we're getting our footing to do just that, move forward? What
Yes.
advice would you share with us?
The first advice is do some wonderful self care with yourself. Know that you are never in grief alone, no matter what it is, a hardship, a death, terminal illness, loss of friendship, whatever your deep sadness is, you're never, ever alone. And there's always a lifeline that you can throw out to get some help. I want you to know that you are able to endure. You are able to endure. Look at you. We're sitting here, we're talking, we are learning together, we are engaging together. You are enduring life. You have courage. You're enduring. You are able to overcome. Just look back at how do I don't know how old you are, but look back over your years and you can find some good stuff in those years. So you're able to endure, you're able to overcome, and you are able to begin again. New mercies every morning. You got them. You're able to begin again. So it doesn't mean to forget your loved one. It doesn't mean to forget your hardship. It means to learn how to cope. Start daily doing better, being better, and knowing that you are better. You're able to endure, you're able to overcome, and you're able to begin again in grief. God bless you.
Wow. I know I'm encouraged to move forward, to take it another day. Um,
Yes,
Thank you so much, Miss Deborah Fry.
you are welcome.
Yes, the founder and owner behind Grief Recovering Specialist. We have more information in regards to how to get connected, and we'll post information about the book. As things expand and your territory expands, know that this is a part of that footprint that you can step into at any time to help us and let us know what
I
you
so enjoy being with you, Nikki.
I
You,
do too.
you
I
are
do.
so wonderful.
Thank
You are
you.
so wonderful.
I learn every time.
Oh yeah.
And
Thank
again,
you for this platform.
yeah,
It's amazing.
thank you for
Daddy is applauding from heaven.
oh,
I want you to know that.
thank you.
Daddy is applauding you.
Okay, don't mess me up on this.
Okay. Okay.
I want to thank you, Miss Deborah Fry. I want to thank you, all of the listeners. Don't forget, you already have everything you need to be
Yes.
successful. Just remember, it's a success as you define it. We want to make sure that you continue to tap into it, show up, share out. We need you. Thank you so much for tuning into another conversation in the nick of times, powered by Sparkman Pathway to Careers and KSTL 690 AM. Until next time, be good